Hello, I'm Ken Gergen, and I've been asked to come here today to talk about social construction. And actually, there's nothing I'd rather do. I've been involved with social constructionist theory, practices, implications for, well, let's say over 25 years. And it's still as exciting today as it was for me 25 years ago. And part of that excitement is because these ideas and the implications and practices that have grown out of them basically at this point travel the globe. And I can be in Delhi, I could be in Kyoto, Japan, I could be in South Africa, I could be in Buenos Aires, Argentina, or Helsinki, Finland, and still have the same kinds of conversations with the same edge, the same sort of exciting implications, everyone wanting to talk, everyone wanting to be in dialogue, because a lot hangs on it. Many people feel that, in fact, possibly the future of global condition depends a great deal on how we can take in and absorb these ideas and use them. Now that's a tall order, and I don't know whether I can make good on that in one day, 1/2 hour, however it is I'm going to talk today, but let's see where we can go. Now it's really important to realize that social construction as a theory, as a set of ideas, doesn't belong to any single person. It's not my theory, it is a group of ideas that have come together to form a mixture, a compound, out of which new dialogues spring and new conditions and new conversations emerge. So that in fact one can try to freeze those conversations at a given point, but you're going to fail. And by the way, this is also to say that because it's not fixed and not frozen, that you as viewer are invited into the conversation. You too could be part of the conversation, which pushes into the next level. You should also realize that as exciting as these ideas are, they're enormously controversial. They unsettle a lot of ideas about things like truth, objectivity, value neutrality, the self, and so on. So realize that as I talk about these ideas, they're going to seem fairly obvious is the way I'm going to put it, but a lot hangs on it, so be careful, and perhaps we can come back to why this controversy in a few minutes. Let me try to make this clear by simply laying out a set of very simple propositions that for many people lie somewhere close to the center of social construction. Not all would agree on every one of these propositions, but let's try them out, because this will certainly get you into the center of what this is all about. There's a first proposition. Whatever there is makes no requirements about how we talk about it, how we characterize it, how we depict it. That is to say, for example, whatever this is makes no demands on us about what language we use, how we characterize it, and so on. We could talk about it as a lot of different things. We could use nonsense syllables to talk about it. We could talk about it as Charlie. We could talk about it as a bottle of water, but that's optional. Okay? Now, watch that. I mean, that seems simple enough, doesn't it? But be careful, because most of the world's peoples today will want to center in on something which this is, and that is what is true about it. That is, there's a strong tendency to delimit and narrow the range of what it is we could call that. Now, let's go on to a second proposition. Whatever it is that I do call this, however it is I characterize it, will not be demanded by what we'll call the thing in itself, but will grow from a set of relationships in which I'm involved, some kind of tradition, some sort of community of which I'm a part. Thus, you and I, in our sort of daily life, will call that a water bottle, a bottle of water, no problem. And we would look at that as kind of a solid object. Now, there's no, in the terms of, let's say, physics, if you were part of that community, there is no technical thing called a water bottle. It's just not a label in physics, and that would not be a solid. If we were to approach this, let's say, from the standpoint of chemistry, still there would be no bottle of water technically. That's a humdrum day-to-day term. What we would be interested in is the chemical composition of that, and what is it in the interior, the liquid and that which it's contained in. There would be a whole language into itself, a whole language that is used by that community to do something with that object. If I were an art historian, I might be interested in this as a quintessential modernist production. That is, the particular design feature of this comes out of a tradition which is probably 80 to 90 years old. If you designed that particular object, well, you wouldn't have the plastic, but if you designed something to be a bottle, let's say 150 years ago, it would have a quite different style. So that becomes an object for me in art history as a modernist design. Now, if I were an environmentalist, that becomes a degradation to our environment. It bears a carbon footprint that would suggest that this is an abomination. Why do we need plastics? Why do we need to import water from far distances? Why do we need to have water which is probably not very different from what we drink out of a tap in any case? So it simply becomes another thing. So in effect, what this is grows into being what it is for us out of some kind of community. Now ask yourself this. We can look at that, we can apprehend it, we can take it into account from many different perspectives. But if you abandon all the perspectives, what can you say about it? Nothing. So in effect, everything that is real for us, that is, which demands our attention for us, comes out of some kind of communal relationship. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes, but it's terribly important. Another way to say that is that we socially construct this for what it is. Now, a third proposition that's very closely related. Whatever construction I make of that, whatever perspective I take on it, is going to bear something that we'll call values. That is, there is no value neutral construction of that. There's no value neutral description of the world. Because each one of these terms that I've used, from these various, from physics, from chemistry, from environmentalism, and so on, and for us in daily life, carries with it something we want to do with it, something which it's valuable for or not valuable for. If we want to reconstruct this material, we'd like to know the chemical composition. If we want to make sure of the purity of that, whatever the